Welcome to my channel. Today I am going to be showing you guys in Procreate how I create my digital art illustrations. I can't start my video without my favorite AHA apple ginger drink. It has 0 sweeteners and it is amazing. It's my favorite thing to drink while I do projects, and yeah, you guys should try it if you haven't. This video is not sponsored by them. I just truly enjoy their drinks. I also can't start my video without my chili tidbits. Those are pineapple, and let's get started. So we're going to go into Procreate, hit photo, choose our photo, and today I am actually working with Burke's photo. She is a YouTuber who is legally blind, and I thought her photo was very fun and playful, and summertime is coming up, so I thought it'd be the perfect opportunity to do a summer illustration. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to click on this square here, and we're going to drag it to whatever we want to outline first. I chose her bathing suit. It is kind of the most prominent thing because it's black. So I went ahead and took the color, which is black, and now I'm choosing my brush, seeing what that looked like, testing it out, and then I'm going to get the right size brush here, and I'm just going to go ahead and outline her bathing suit. So after I outline her bathing suit, I then am going to choose the color after checking it out, making sure that everything is outlined the way it's supposed to be, making sure there are no gaps in between the outline, because then this crazy thing happens where the whole screen fills up with one color. And so now I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to take white from the inside of the lettering of her bathing suit that says Survivor, and I'm just going to go ahead and outline and then fill that in so that it shows up on the illustration. After I finish that up, I go ahead and check to see if everything looks good. Everything looks great. And now I'm going to check what it looks like on the actual layer. And now I'm going to go ahead and go back to my bathing suit layer, collect the black, make sure that your layer is chosen, and I'm going to go ahead and drag and drop the color. I did this a couple times because sometimes if you drag and drop and hold the pen down and swipe to the right, it kind of fills everything in. But here I was kind of struggling with the inside of the O, which I had to do separately, and then the left side of the bathing suit. So I just went ahead and did it manually. And here it is, just filling in some of the gaps. It's always good to use a bright colored background, as I have here, like red or yellow. That way you can see any gaps that are showing through that need to be filled in with your current color. After that, I'm just going to go ahead and quickly edge anything up that needs edging, fix anything that might look a little off. And the cool thing about Procreate is if you make a mistake or if you draw a line like I accidentally did there, you go ahead and double tap the screen and it's gone. Here I'm adding another layer, and I'm going to start on her hair. So there I am, hitting the circle, grabbing the color of her hair, and then I'm just going to outline the trace of, I'm just going to trace an outline of her hair. And now her bun. And I kind of experimented a little bit with her bun in this section. One of the things that I did was it kind of looked like a cinnamon roll, and so I decided not to keep that. And I just went for a more simple look. Again, remember to drag and drop, and if it's filling in if it's not filling in just that item, either you don't have the lines connected somewhere, or what happens is sometimes the fill is on too high. And so what you do is you drag and drop, but you hold the pen down and swipe to the left until it fills just the item that you're trying to fill. So now I'm just adding some details to her hair, which I ended up not liking and erasing, but her bun came out really cute. And just like my husband tells me, sometimes less is more. So here's the cinnamon roll I was telling you guys about, and I did not like it. So here I am just deciding that the more simple route is better, and boom, we're done. The next thing I'm going to do is turn off my layers. I'm going to add a new layer because now I am going to outline her face and her ears. By this, I do the same exact thing for every step. I go ahead and kind of search for a color on her face. Sometimes I will adjust this color if I think that it kind of looks a little off, or the color just doesn't match her skin tone. And so I outlined, now I'm dragging and dropping, and I'm going to go ahead and outline it again. This time I zoomed in just so I can see more of the details. And if you notice, I'm not really concerned with the lining of her face up, or for her forehead up there on the top, and that's because her hair layer is going to actually cover that, so we don't have to get super specific. That's the great thing about layering and Procreate, is the layers that go on top will cover some of the layers that go on the bottom, so we don't really have to worry about that hairline when it comes to the face. Right here, I'm just adding some of the ear details, and as you can see, they're not filled in, so I'm going to go ahead and drag and drop, and then hold down, drag to the right, and that fills in the whole ear. And I'm going to go ahead and do that same thing with the other side. Once I'm done with that, and I like the way that it looks and how it's shaped, I'm then going to go ahead and show my hair layer to make sure everything lines up perfectly. And then I'm going to go ahead and edit anything that looks off, like her sideburns, and I'm just going to go ahead and tighten everything up after that. Once I'm happy with how it looks, I'm then going to turn off the layers that I am not editing, and I am going to go back to my layers tab, and I'm going to go ahead and add another layer. And this time I'm going to be doing her chest and her neck, so that will fall behind her face. As you can see, her face is in front of her chest, and so anything that is in front you're going to want on the top. Again, we don't have to worry about things that we won't see, so in this case her face layer will be on top of the line across her face. The drawing a line across her face is going to allow for the color to be dropped, and it just makes the editing process so much easier. So here I am dragging and dropping, making sure that all the lines are connected, holding, and then I just do a quick swipe to the left, and if you see there, everything lines up perfectly and we are good to go. I wasn't happy with the chest tone that I was getting, and so I kind of modified it myself a little bit. Sometimes what I like to do is pick up the color of the face and then go a couple tones darker, and a lot of the time it ends up matching a lot better than what I pick up from the photo, just because you deal with things like shadows and unwanted things that get in the photo that wouldn't necessarily be there otherwise. And so sometimes just matching it to the face, but a few shades darker, a lot of the time will just work that way. Here I'm adding another layer so that I can go ahead and start on her legs. And I'm just going to go ahead and do the same exact thing that I did with the other layers. And I'm going to outline and then drag and drop. But don't forget things like her hip lines. And my personal favorite to do when I am doing something personal like this is not forgetting things like moles, freckles, and anything that would bring out the character that I'm drawing or the person that I'm drawing. So I went ahead and I added a couple of her moles going forward. Here I ended up fixing that later on in the drawing, which is not shown in the video, because the water separated her booty from the floaty. And so what I ended up doing was just kind of filling in that little gap there that you see to the left of the screen, and it looked more natural. And so I'm going to go ahead and drag and drop and fill these areas. And another tip that I do like for people to keep in mind is that when you do the details like her hip lines, or let's say her armpit lines or her arm lines, you always want to make sure that you're using a tad bit of a darker color than her skin tone so that those lines are defined as if they were being defined in real life with shadows and whatnot. So now that I've toggled all of the rest of the layers off, I'm going to go ahead and again start with another layer. The color palette will show you when you use a certain color, it'll keep it in the color palette for you. So I like all of my body to be the same tones, and so I will use the same color to outline and then the same color to drag and drop. And so here I'm using the darker color to outline just so that we get the details in there. And again, if you make any mistakes, you are able to double tap with 2 fingers on the screen, and it acts as the eraser. So here I'm just going to go ahead and outline her hands. And then I'm also going to include her rings. And then towards the end of this editing, I also added a little bee on her hand, which was just a personal touch. Her name is Molly Burke, and so her fan base is called the Killer Bees. And so I thought, summertime calls for a lot of bees to be out and about. And so I just thought it would be a cute little summertime touch to put a bee on her hand, just kind of hanging out with her by the pool or in the pool. So yeah, add personal touches as you want, and make sure that it just becomes very personal between you and the client. And I feel like that really makes things matter in the editing process. It makes it a little bit more fun. So as soon as you're done with the hands and you like the way that they look, I then like to pull from the photo itself. And what I did here was I wanted to give her a nail color. And I picked this really cute pop of yellow to add to her fingernails because I just thought it was bright and bubbly, just like she is. And it was the perfect opportunity to just add that little pep on her fingers. Sometimes you have to fill things manually because the drag and drop feature is not reading properly. Sometimes spots are too small. So here I am just opening up all the layers to make sure everything's coming together the way that it's supposed to be. And now I am going to go ahead and toggle all of those off. And I'm going to start on the left side, which would be her right side technically. And I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing that I did on her left arm to her right arm. Now, as an artist, I think we all have a kryptonite, and I feel like this will be super relatable to a lot of different artists, but my kryptonite is definitely hands. I struggle so hard with trying to make hands look normal, and I kind of laughed a little bit when I was trying to edit this one because not only is she in motion, so it's a little bit blurry to see, but I also tried to kind of make my own hand to see how I can get it to work, because I couldn't really see a clear view of where her fingers and her hands and the lines of her hands were falling. And so it was a little bit difficult. The first hand that I make here kind of looks like a crab hand or a lobster hand. And so I kind of just played with it until I was somewhat satisfied with the way that it turned out. And so here I'll toggle it off. I'll toggle off the actual background and check to see what it looks like just by itself. And as you could see, it kind of looked like a lobster hand. So I'm going ahead and I'm double tapping with my fingers to go backwards and erase or undo anything that I didn't want. And so in this case, that was the hand. And now I'm going to go in and I'm going to edit it until it becomes what I think that it should look like. Another thing that I like doing is once I have the hand set, I go ahead and I outline where I want the nails to fall, but I do that with the skin tone color. That way when you fill it in, that's exactly where it meets up to, is that line that you draw. So I go ahead and do that. And then when I drag and drop the color, it falls right in between those lines, and it just makes for a more crisp and clean look. And it was drawing this specific part of her body that I realized that she had a little mole there. And so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab that color and then just do a little mole there on her side like she has. And then I realized that she had some on her arms, so I then go ahead and fill those in. These are good to do before the drag and drop, just so that you're able to see where the moles are and you don't have to toggle or go back and forth. And so anything that you want to fill in on her body, you go ahead and you do that before you fill it in. I remembered that she had a mole there on her hip crease, and so I went ahead and I filled that in. And then as soon as I was done with that, I grabbed the color from her other arm and I drag and dropped. Sometimes with things like this, it's better to toggle off the layer that is in the background just so that you can focus strictly on what you're working on. And by doing this, it actually allows you to see any missing gaps. Say, for example, here, I'm having to manually fill in some of her finger areas because it did not pick up when I drag and dropped. So therefore, I'm just kind of compensating for what drag and drop did not include and making sure that all the details are filled in the way that they're supposed to be. And that's why I suggest using a colored background. It's a lot easier to see any gaps or anything that is missing in your illustration. So now we're going to create another layer, and this time it's going to go all the way to the back because that is where this part of the floaty is. And for the fun part, I sat down and I had not realized how much detail this floaty actually had to it, but I kind of had fun doing it. It was very relaxing and it was almost like a color book. So by doing this. It was really, I guess, a test of character for me and a test of my skills. So it was very fun and really a new experience for me. So I enjoyed it. One thing I did notice when doing the floaty was that in the beginning, I was kind of doing everything by color. But further in the process, I realized that it's actually easy to do all of the color first. So basically outlining all of your blues, all of your greens, all of your pinks, and all of your yellows. And once that is through, then go back in with the black and outline everything the way that you would like it to come out. And I found that that was easier than what I did to begin with here. And so that's what I ended it with. And basically the rest of the process is just filling in the floaty, and so I will go ahead and fast forward it through that. I did want to point out here that after I was done outlining the blue on the top and I was able to drag and drop the lighter shade of blue, if you notice down below where I'm outlining now, again, being able to go over that arm because the arm's going to go over that part of the floaty, I drag and drop, but then I take a darker color to give it more dimension on the bottom. So I just wanted to make sure that I was noting that. And so that it does, as you can see, the arm is covering that floaty and we are able to continue editing. Another thing that I will note is the greatest thing about illustrations that you create yourself, even though you are following a photo, you can always change the color of things. For example, this flower was kind of like an orange or like a light orange, but I preferred the yellow just because, again, it's very bright, very fun. And so that's what I did. I ended up dragging and dropping yellow into the flower space instead of the actual color that was like a light orange. as you could see, now I am outlining the front face of the floaty, and I'm doing the bottom part which is the darker part of the floaty. And what I did want to add is that the floaty has some creases in it. As a blow-up toy, it's natural for it to have those creases, as you can see. And so what I went ahead and did with that was took a little bit of a darker color, and I went ahead and I filled in those floaty creases and basically made sure that it looked kind of naturally creased the way that it would be if somebody was sitting on it, or if it was blown up, something inflatable. That's how it would. So I went ahead and took a little bit of a darker color, and I just made those little lines. I also wanted to note that I do sell custom portrait illustrations. I sell them through Etsy, and I will leave that link in the description box below. So as I'm finishing everything up here, I was kind of realizing that the front of the floaty was kind of looking a little dull. And I realized that I hadn't outlined the front of it. And so I went ahead and I outlined the front of it with the same color that I outlined the original first section of the floaty. And so while I went ahead and did this, there were a few other edits that I made off screen, and I will definitely add the end result photo at the end of the video. But I really enjoyed doing this illustration. It was very fun, very bright, and very cheery, and it was honestly very relaxing. Like I said, all the shapes and everything on the floaties it was kind of like a coloring book. So it was a very enjoyable piece and I was very happy with the outcome. So after making these small little touch-ups towards the end, I am just going to go ahead and finish up with that. And then I did make some other adjustments off camera. And one of them, as you can see, there's a gap where her ring is. I went ahead and filled that in. As I mentioned earlier, I added a bee to her hand, and then with the aqua background, I added a water pattern. That is a brush that comes with the Procreate app. There is no additional purchases necessary. And so it really just gave the summer vibes. And then I added my handle onto one of her shoulders. And so that's pretty much it. If you have any questions, suggestions, or any suggestions for future illustrations, I'd be more than happy to accept any. Go ahead and leave them in the comments. If you liked the video or if you found the video helpful, please hit that like button. And if you feel the need to subscribe, I'd be more than happy to have you as a subscriber. I appreciate you tuning in, and I can't wait to see you guys until next time. And there you have it, you guys. So I will go ahead and link all of Molly's handles, including her YouTube, down in the description box below. And here's the final product. Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.